Your Excellency Tsion Teklu, Your Excellency Dr. Nemera Gebeyehu, dear Ato Temesgen, dear Mr. Günther Schmid, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Welcome to the Baden-Württemberg Africa Online Economic Summit session, Ethiopia under bold economic reforms, the watershed to prosperity. To recall, Ethiopia witnessed a major shift and transformation in May 2018 when Dr. Abiy Ahmed, former president of Oromia Regional State and minister at Ministry of Science and Technology, became the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. In his inauguration speech, Prime Minister Dr. Abiy announced, promised to reform the economy and enhance the people-to-government relationship. Since his coming to office, Ethiopia has experienced bold economic reforms. For our focus today, especially in the financial sector, in the investment sector, privatization, state-owned companies, and partly liberalization of the transport as well, the logistics sector. In this session today, we would love to have a closer look at the Ethiopian economic reforms and what this means for companies in Baden-Württemberg and beyond. The opening speech of this session will be given by Mr. Günther Schmid, Head of Division Foreign Trade at Ministry of Economic Affairs, Labor and Housing of the state of Baden-Württemberg. The economist, Mr. Schmid, by education, took his first delegation trip straight to Africa, namely to South Africa and to Ethiopia last year, November. Please welcome with me, Mr. Schmid.
I can't hear him.
Of Baden-Württemberg's activities in Africa. It is the only African country that has already been visited twice by a political supported business delegation from Baden-Württemberg during the ongoing legislative period. In 2017, State Secretary Schütz and in 2019, Minister Dr. Hofmeister-Kraut visited Addis Abeba and returned confirmed and committed by their positive impressions and encounters. I am therefore particularly pleased about your participation, Your Excellencies. Although it is held virtually, this event underlines our common political and economic interest in a vivid and successful cooperation and exchange. We highly appreciate that Your Excellency Tsion Teklu, Minister of State at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, gave yourself the honor of partaking at the opening of our African Summit with a keynote. I'm therefore very grateful to convey the personal greetings from our Minister, Dr. Nicole Hofmeister-Kraut, who is unfortunately unable to attend today. Your Excellencies, I'm very curious to learn about more the ambitious reforms in your country and the progress and successes that have already been achieved. Thank you very much for your willingness to present important milestones of these reforms to today's participants. Dear participants, the seminal industry sectors, environmental technology, automotive, mechanical engineering and automation, which have already been in the focus of our delegation last November, constitute the branches in which we see particular promising potential for our future cooperation. Baden-Württemberg is known all over the world for its strengths in the area of automotive and mechanical engineering. And as you all know, companies like Daimler or Porsche, but also the large number of medium-sized specialists and world market leaders in the supplier sector contribute to the reputation of top-notch, high-quality technology from southwestern Germany. Almost a year ago, we had the pleasure to welcome an Ethiopian automobile delegation headed by His Excellency Minister Teka and Her Excellency Minister Mulu, who visited Stuttgart, home of highly regarded automobile manufacturers. But Beyond the important automotive industry, various branches provide promising opportunities for a deepened cooperation. Baden-Württemberg also has great expertise in the areas of environmental technology and medical technology, broader speaking, in the health industry. To tackle the challenges of our time, combining strengths and linking up the key areas remain immensely important. And also the agro-industrial potential of Ethiopia provides promising opportunities for cooperation too. I gladly recommend to join our live session the day after tomorrow, dealing with the structure and chances of the Ethiopian food processing industry. And another panel discussion I want to recommend is the session on vocational training and skilled workforce potential in East Africa tomorrow afternoon. The discussion will highlight the importance of vocational training and education in business relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, we do see great opportunities in the East Africa region and are looking really forward to further deepen our economic partnership in a sustainable manner. We want to support you, the Baden-Württemberg companies, in successful starting or expanding your business activities in this market. For this purpose, we are happy we have opened our own Baden-Württemberg office in Ethiopia. And with you, dear Mr. Estefanius Samuel, the head of our office, we have now and are now be able with a competent economic expert in Addis. As a business representative, Mr. Samuel is the local contact person and facilitator for companies from Baden-Württemberg and will be happy to advise you on all country-specific issues and opportunities. He's looking forward to put Ethiopian companies in contact with us in Baden-Württemberg too. So please do not hesitate to approach Mr. Samuel from either side. The same applies to our network of experts and contact points within the state of Baden-Württemberg. With Baden-Württemberg International, we have our own state agency that will be happy to provide you with competent support in matters of internationalization, and that also provided us with active support at the Africa Summit and the aforementioned delegation trips. At this point, I would also like to express my gratitude to the colleagues from Baden-Württemberg International. Last but not least, I would like to take the opportunity to point out other important foreign actors in Baden-Württemberg. In addition to the 12 chambers of commerce and industry in the regional state, we have our own branch-specific agencies with E-Mobile Baden-Württemberg, Umwelttechnik Baden-Württemberg und Leichtbau Baden-Württemberg, which are pleased to support you with your questions and concerns, also beyond questions of internationalization. Dear participants, now I'm looking forward to the discussion with you on the subject of Ethiopia's bold economic reforms, the watershed to prosperity. Thank you so much for your attendance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schmid. I'm very happy about the collaboration we have for now more than 3 years. And thank you, and it's an honor for me to be the economic representative of Baden-Württemberg here in Eastern Africa. Thank you, Mr. Schmid. Please allow me to introduce our keynote speaker for the next session, Her Excellency the State Minister Tsion Teklu, State Minister at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Economic Diplomacy and Diaspora Affairs. Ms. Tsion has received her bachelor's degree in economics from Addis Ababa University and completed her master's degree in transformational leadership and change from the University of Greenwich, London. She is enthusiastic and passionate about leader, trainer, and instructor with high exposure to international community and possesses the ability to transfer knowledge and experiences. Her Excellency Tsion is also adjunct instructor at the Unity University here in Addis Ababa. Prior to her new appointment, Her Excellency Tsion has been serving as a state minister at the Ministry of Education. Please all welcome her.
Thank you very much, Stefanos, for inviting me. Well, ጤና ይስጥልኝ, I would say, just to start my speech. Günther, Schmid, Minister of Economic, Labor and Housing of the state of Baden-Württemberg. Dear colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by thanking the East Africa partners and the state of Baden-Württemberg for organizing this forum and giving me the opportunity to make the opening remark for tonight's discussion on the reform agenda from the perspective of business, diplomacy, and regional economic integration. Ethiopia and Germany are known to have strong bilateral relation, which has passed more than a century. Ethiopia appreciates to be a priority country of German development cooperation and has been a reform partnership country since 2019. Ethiopia valued the Germans encouraging investment in education, nutrition, agriculture, as well as the protection of natural resources in Ethiopia. Germany is a leading country in support of the ongoing reform in my country, which encompasses political, economic, and structural reforms. Based on the homegrown economic reform agenda, Ethiopia envisaged to boost investment and create jobs, and German companies' contribution in this regards is really great. And I would like to thank the government of Germany in this regards. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure, satisfaction to acknowledge that the trade and investment relations between our two countries are going over the years. Economic development in Ethiopia relies heavily on the development of closer economic links between Ethiopia and Germany. 35 Germany's companies engaged in Ethiopia's floriculture, logistics, transport, pharmaceutical sector. Ethiopia has received a total of more than 1.1 billion euros under the German technical and financial cooperation. Thank you. My country expects even more focus on economic cooperation and connectivity among different nations. Germany's investment in Ethiopia is showing significant expansion in both quality and quantity. The German government and companies have been involved mainly in education, vocational and higher education, food security and agriculture, conservation and sustainable use of natural resources and biodiversity, as well as other projects. I'm inviting you to watch the tourism videos as I'm sharing the script so that you can enjoy the diversity in Ethiopia. The last 17 years, the economic growth of our nation was mainly built on government investment through foreign loans. Coupled with the poor execution of projects, the government investment created a significant debt burden, which led to a significant macroeconomic imbalance. The situation necessitates reform in terms of reducing government investment and encouraging private investment to achieve a focus on efficient project execution. The first phase of the economic reform is to reduce the role of the government and promoting the private sector engagement. The government has taken bold measures, raising tax revenues. The reform measures in the economic front aim at maintaining the growth momentum in the sustainable manner. The efforts focus on expanding the source of growth, the ability to the economy, and employment in both the urban and rural areas, which could not absorb joblessness. The reform was a necessity as well as a correct move on the side of the Ethiopian government. Germany has been one of our supporters in this reform for the continuation of this support and at a greater level and also aspect. Business diplomacy at the MFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is core to the reform, and I lead this department and its establishment and functionality. It has served as a gateway for foreign direct investment, trade, technology, transfer, and also tourism. The reform in terms of FDI, 12 years back in 2000, less than 100 million USD. After 10 years, this number increased to Ethiopia, the second largest recipient in Africa. The increase was both in quantity and in quality. At the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, my job is mainly to create awareness of investment opportunities in Ethiopia and work closely with foreign governments, line ministries, authorities, as well as the private sector. Other related focus priorities are technology transfer. For an emerging economy as Ethiopia, learning and investment, as well as capacity building, is as important as the foreign direct investment. Ethiopia focuses on every possibility of taking the latecomer advantage in technology, as well as acquiring skills through employment. Trade and exports are what leads Ethiopia to give FDI to others. Much has been done through the reform to be competitive in the regional market and in the world. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a great opportunity for our regional integration. I have full confidence that Germany, the state of Baden-Württemberg, will support us in the preparation and implementation to assure fair and beneficial free trade in our region. In all the connections, tourism will shine. Ethiopia is blessed with many heritages, events, and topography. Every move for foreign direct investment, trade, technology, or even meetings such as this comes with the offer to tourism. That's why I'm inviting you to watch the videos that I'm just putting and sharing on my screen. Ethiopia is determined that every connection created, whether it's official, whether it's business, or whether it's leisure, stimulates people to travel to Ethiopia, enjoy the country, and be a lasting friend to us. Let me close by just inviting you to enjoy the presentation by my enlightening colleagues who will go in depth on the serious topics for today, you to Ethiopia, but our heart. So I'm sure you will enjoy the presentation by my colleague, Dr. Nemera, and also my colleague, Temesgen. አመሰግናለሁ. Enjoy and it would be a successful forum. Thank you. አመሰግናለሁ.
በጣም አመሰግናለሁ, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for your effortless support to bring German and Ethiopian business together, and for the opening speech of the entire business month, as well for the live opening speech of this session. Thank you, Your Excellency, Tsion. Yes, now we are moving to introduce the next two speakers and presenters, as already has been mentioned by Her Excellency Tsion. Please allow me to introduce His Excellency Dr. Nemera Gebeyehu Mamo, Deputy Commissioner with the rank of State Minister at the Ethiopian Planning and Development Commission. His Excellency Dr. Nemera, a distinguished economist, leads a team of economists at the Ethiopian Planning and Development Commission and focus on Ethiopia's macroeconomy. Dr. Nemera holds a PhD degree in economics from Sussex University in Brighton, United Kingdom, and was a economic lecturer associate at the Queen Mary University in London before he moved back to Ethiopia to join the office of Ethiopia's Planning and Development Commission as a Deputy Commissioner. Mr. Nemera will give us deep insight about the recently launched and groundbreaking 10-year economic plan of Ethiopia and how such ambitious goals are planned to be implemented, as well as what role companies from Baden-Württemberg could play. Our next speaker after Dr. Nemera is Mr. Temesgen Tilahun. He is Deputy Commissioner at Ethiopian Investment Commission, EIC, currently leading the Investment Promotion and Policy Research Division at EIC, where he is mainly responsible for coordinating the investment promotion, policy research, and the legal reform on investment, climate improvement, and bilateral investment charities initiatives of the Commission. Mr. Temesgen is also a member of the EIC Executive Management Team in charge of developing and executing key strategic decisions of the Commission. Prior to join the EIC, Mr. Temesgen was a senior advisor at the former Ministry of Science and Technology, the now Ministry of Innovation and Technology Office of the Research and Technology Affairs of the State Minister. Mr. Temesgen holds a bachelor's degree in political science and international relations as a master's degree. Please welcome, and master's degree, and he was a lecturer at Ethiopian University in Mamo. Ladies and gentlemen, as has been announced at the beginning, Ethiopia has experiencing for the last 2.5 years massive change, and a lot of reforms are happening. So as we were talking about that the move from state-led development to now economic that has been strongly led by the private sector, I would love to invite you to listen carefully and to see your opportunities and your chances, how you could engage in Ethiopia's future. My first question goes to Dr. Nemera. Dear Dr. Nemera, you chose to come back from London and to join the new Ethiopia path as civil servant. The last 2 years were bold in terms of changing, in designing, planning Ethiopia's development. In June, your esteemed office commission launched the 10-year development plan. What are the major aspects and what do we mean when we say private sector focused plan and development? Is the era of the state-led development passé?
Thank you very much. I would like to first say thank you for inviting the Planning and Development Commission to take part on this really good summit to further strengthen the relationship between Germany and Ethiopia. So on the behalf of Planning and Development Commission, I would like to say thank you. And also it's good that Her Excellency Tsion Teklu has really captured the broader ambitions and reforms that Ethiopia has been undertaking over the past 2 years, especially since April 2018. So, I mean, for me, I would like to focus the question that Stefanos just asked now. What is it really new in this 10 years perspective development plan in terms of private sector, role and participation compared to the previous, policies and the strategies that Ethiopia has been pursuing? Just to give you, a background context about the Ethiopian economy. Of course, Ethiopia has registered a broad-based economic growth over the past 2 decades, which was largely, led by public investment, in particular public investment in the, different or diverse infrastructural, projects. Of course, the participation and the role of the private sector in this growth trajectory or history had been, very limited. For that matter, even comparing to the standard of Africa or generally low-income countries, the growth and the development of the private sector or their contribution to such, incredible growth that Ethiopia registered over the past 2 decades had been very minimal. This also comes from the strategy that the government followed. The government largely focused on boosting the general investment in the infrastructure areas, and less emphasis were given to the private sector participations in terms of boosting the competitiveness and the productivity gains of Ethiopia's economy. So since 2018, the homegrown economic reform and also the general 10 years development plan that we are devising at the moment, we wanted to really put the private sector in the driver's seat because Ethiopian economy faces huge challenge in terms of domestic and global competitiveness, and in terms of also boosting the productivity of the economy. I mean, the evidences do suggest that the private sectors are the main players in terms of boosting productivity and also the competitiveness of a particular country. The same could be also true for Ethiopia. So the government has clearly mentioned that the private sector's role and participation should be, increased. They should have a bold, contributions in the economic activities, broad-based economic activities, whether it is in the agricultural sector, the manufacturing sector, the tourism sector, or the broader natural, resource sectors. The same also with the ICT sectors. Ethiopia is also identifying the digital sector as one source of, economic growth opportunities. So the participation of the private sectors are vital in order to ensure sustainable economic growth and also to bring, productivity gains that we aspire to achieve as a big economy, not only in East Africa, in the global competition as well. So these local, broad-based reforms targeted, the private sectors in terms of, addressing the bottlenecks from institutional and different, policy incentive structure that hindered the participation of the private sectors. So our short-term, homegrown economic reform targeted that, at the macro level, sectoral level, and also in structural levels, trying to, really address what were the bottlenecks that, hindered the private sector's participation in economic activity. And we prioritize then, really gradually, resolving the problems. This 10 years development plan also builds on that, short-term economic reforms that we have been undertaking over the last, 2 years. And we wanted to really make sure that the private sectors take their, fair participation and role in the economy. Of course, that doesn't mean that the government has no role in the economic activity. The government is still, big player in the economy. And one of the main, transition that, the reform is also targeting is to bring this natural transition from the state-led to the private sector, which of course doesn't going to happen overnight. State still, involves in a lot of economic activities from the financial sector to, the real sectors of the economy. So the partnership between the private sector and the public is also vital for that transition. And we aspire to make that. There are, of course, different reforms being undertaken in terms of, opening up the space, both in the finance sector and also in the broader investment climate, to make sure that the private sectors have confidence, to do the partnership with the government. When I say the private sector, is not only the domestic private sectors, we also have to really, tap the potential that comes from outside, but in particular, the partnership that we have with the, German companies, and globally also Ethiopia has, diverse partnership, and the globe is also becoming very competitive in that sense. We need to really make sure that we, target quality and quantity, foreign direct investment, so to achieve our, long-term prosperity, agenda. And of course, Her Excellency Tsion Teklu has mentioned earlier the partnership that Ethiopia enjoys with the German economies. So to use their numbers, she mentioned earlier that more than 30, investors from Germany are participating in Ethiopia, and we would like to see these numbers, rise in numbers and both in quality. And also, like, our partnership doesn't really, only confined to investment alone. We also do, cherish the partnership that we have in terms of education sector, the health sector, the vocational trainings that the Germany is contributing in Ethiopia. So yeah, this is how the 10 years perspective and really puts in perspective the role of private sectors from external, points of view, in particular the German participation in Ethiopia's, economic activity. So this is what I could say for now. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. A very interesting insight. One interview what I have seen with Commissioner Fitzum, Dr. Fitzum, was that she mentioned it's not just a plan that a small group of team has designed for Ethiopia, but it's a plan that has been with Ethiopians, with consultation of people and experts on different bases. How did this happen in its very short period of time?
Yes, thank you very much. So one of the main difference that Ethiopia's public policy making environment is experiencing from, one of the major departures from the past is that in the past, it was exclusively the state that really, exercises the development planning and also the policy, identifications and, the development strategies that the government put forward. But over the past 2 years, one of, really a good reform area that the government has pursued is making sure that the public policy arena is participatory in terms of engaging all the diverse stakeholders, largely bringing on board the non-state actors in the planning process, in the policy dialogues. Yeah, so that's what she meant when she said this plan is, really planned with Ethiopians. We are not, as a policymakers, just planning for Ethiopians, but we planned it together. Over the past, few months, we have undertaken several consultations with the private sector actors. When I say private sectors, not only in the profit-making, private sectors, but also those, non-governmental organizations who are really pursuing, societal development objectives. And also we've engaged, from external, our development partners in these, development planning exercises, because in one way or another, these are the actors who are going to, play their roles in terms of implementing the macro and the sectoral development, objective that the government is identifying. So that's what we meant, we are not planning for Ethiopians, but we planned it together by making sure that the planning and the policy dialogue is as participatory as possible, largely with the private sectors.
Thank you, Dr. Nemera. And participating or having information from the different sources is also my point to my next question. My next question goes to Temesgen, Deputy Commissioner. My office was lucky to be part of the new investment law and to have been consulted regarding to that and to give a response to this. So therefore, the bottom-up information and an exchange with stakeholders is quite vital and very important to have successful reforms. So my question to you, to Temesgen, is the difference of this new investment law is a quite different one than from that what was previously. It's a completely different one. That's what we have experienced. If you can tell us what's the different approach for the of the new investment law.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Stefanos, and just like my colleagues.
We can't hear you. Maybe.
What about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Yes?
Perfect.
Okay, good. So I would like to thank Stefanos in person and the East African partners as an institution for organizing this special event for German companies to have more information about the reforms happening in Ethiopia. And I'm really happy to take part in this particular event to answer some of your questions. Of course, to specifically address your question, we have to trace back to the general reform direction that the government has been pursuing in the past couple of years. Of course, Dr. Nemera has mentioned about the homegrown economic reform agenda and the 10 years plan that has already been rolled out. The reform agenda of the new government begins actually from the very speech that the Prime Minister made during his inaugural speech at the Parliament, where he actually sets up his government's vision in terms of taking a new direction in economic policy implementation. So the homegrown economic reform agenda actually came into the scene and introduced the major reform directions that the country would like to go. And of course, this is basically to address three major objectives. One is actually to sustain the fast economic growth that has been achieved for more than 10 or 15 years. And it's about tackling challenges that appeared because of the impasse reached due to the state-led government, the state-led economic policy making and implementation. And the third one is actually to bring about sustainable economic growth as such. So the three major pillars that the homegrown economic agenda would like to address are, of course, the macroeconomic, the structural and sector-specific ones. To our specific investment sector relations, the investment climate reform that has been implemented in the past 1 year is of central importance because of the intervention by the government to improve the investment climate as such. We have managed at least to address specific challenges in terms of existing laws and procedures, and we managed actually to change more than 80 laws and procedures which were considered to be bottlenecks for doing business in Ethiopia. Actually, the major reform came when the government introduced a new investment proclamation number 1118, 2019, and the follow-up directive number 474, 2020. These two new investment laws, I may say policies, these are just like policies, shifts or departures from the past in a number of ways. One, these new laws are well in line with the overall government reform agendas into giving place for the private sector to play and actually broaden the investment climate and improve ease of doing business in Ethiopia as such. So the new law basically is about modernizing the investment climate. It has been more than actually 8 or so years since we have an investment regulation of a kind, which is somehow an old version, which cannot go with the existing policy reforms that's happening in the country. So it's about modernizing the law and aligning it with existing reforms. And it's about creating new opportunities for foreign direct investors in general and the private investment in general to have a more broader space to act and provide somehow an adequate, streamlined and predictable investment services to investors. So I may mention some of the big changes in our new law in terms of actually investment protection, guarantee and facilitation services that we have bestowed by the law. There is somehow an expansion of responsibilities to the Ethiopian Investment Commission to provide more services than before. To mention you just a few, we are now granted somehow a responsibility to provide one-stop services for projects throughout their lifespan. In the old investment law, we provide services only until the investor gets its business license. But now, the investor could get or will get its services starting from investment license to business license and further. So this is somehow an extension of investment facilitation services that we have. In terms of visa, now we can provide 5 years multiple entry visa for investors as such. In addition to that, the Ethiopian Investment Commission is given a responsibility to actually coordinate in a clear structure with regional systems or regional investment bureaus through the regional coordination council that would be created very soon as part of the regulation. And this council is going to be chaired by the Prime Minister, and all regional presidents are going to be parts of this council. This, unlike before, gives the Commission a chance to provide more streamlined services across government tiers for investors. The grievance handling mechanisms that we are going to establish at the headquarters is a new invention of the law, which will provide more confidence for investors whenever they face challenges and apply for some kind of solution for their problems. But the general shift in terms of investment attraction and investment promotion is the departure from a positive listing approach into a negative listing approach. The old law actually states that there are specific sectors listed which are allowed for the foreign direct investors to engage. But in the new law, which is called the negative listing investment law, it gives generally 3 areas of investment. One is areas reserved for joint investment with government. The second one is areas reserved for joint investment with domestic investors. The other one is somehow areas reserved for local investors, 32 in number. And the rest is open for foreign direct investments. This is a big shift. This is a kind of a new direction that the government took. So now Ethiopia, we can say, is open for foreign investment more than any time before. As such, in terms of sector priority, of course, we still stick to the homegrown economic agenda, the sector-specific reforms or sector-specific reform sectors, the agriculture sector, the manufacturing sector as it was, and tourism, ICT, and mining sectors are among the top priorities that we would like to promote for the private sector investment. But in general, the new law gives broader room in terms of investment service provision for the Commission, as well as relevant government bodies to provide adequate, predictable, and somehow streamlined services.
Yeah. Thank you, Temesgen. I think this new approach from negative listing to open gives more opportunity for foreign direct investment to have not faced those obstacles. I know it's not Industrial Park Development Corporation, it's the Investment Commission, but 2 weeks ago, the industry park in Bahrdar has been inaugurated, another next industry park. If you give us some insight about the industrial parks concept and because your investors are mostly going into industry parks, and maybe if you give us 1 or 2 words to that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, the concept of industrial park is a policy direction. It's a strategy for the government to somehow create a kind of conducive and competitive advantage for investors to grasp. It has been more than actually 10 years since the government started thinking of the idea of special economic zones as a strategy, and the first industrial park was introduced in the year 2012, and starting from then, actually the government came up with constructed more than 12 industrial parks. Currently, we have more than 13 industrial parks already functional, and on the pipeline we have more than 4 industrial parks under construction. We have more than actually 7 industrial parks privately owned. The general idea is actually to provide adequate infrastructure for investors to start implementation of their businesses in a very short period of time. The investor is not supposed to construct its own sheds, roads. It's not supposed to wait for electricity, water, and other services. The industrial park is the place where you can find everything, starting from the infrastructure to the services that are relevant to the investor in its business activities. So we believe that these industrial parks are not only meant for addressing infrastructural gaps for investors, but it's about a policy direction of pursuing green economy. It's about maintaining the environment. For example, if you see most of our industrial parks, they are furnished with state-of-the-art treatment plants, both effluent and chemical treatment plants. The Hawassa Industrial Park, for example, is one of the few industrial parks in Africa with zero liquid discharge facility. So this is not about business only, but it's about the environment as well. So our industrial parks are there for pursuing fast economic growth in major priority sectors, but also these are incentives for companies to earn or contribute to the economy more than in time before. And we have actually incentives in relation to the services that we have across industrial parks.
Thank you. I think green economy is also part of the planning commission of the 10-year plan in Ethiopia. Dr. Nemera, I would love to go to Vision 2030 of the part of the planning for Ethiopia. An African beacon of prosperity is part of it. Can you give us more about your major targets you want to reach by 2030, maybe in the next couple of years? Because one is, as I mentioned, the green economy, and maybe there are more that might be relevant for our speakers or for our listeners.
Yes, thank you very much. So yeah, I mean, the broader vision for the 10 years perspective development plan for Ethiopia is to really go beyond, just economic growth, but to really ensure, a multidimensional development where, all citizens would be, the beneficiaries from the growth. One of the main challenges that we faced in the past was, of course, Ethiopia has achieved an incredible story in terms of bringing a broad-based economic growth. But of course, that also came with huge, challenges in terms of, creating quality jobs, and also a global, ensuring global competitiveness in terms of our, sector's performance in international, trades, especially in terms of export market. That could also be, says a lot about the low competitiveness and the low, productivity gains that we have. So the vision we set, for our country is to ensure, prosperity, multi-dimensional, development successes, where we really have to really go beyond, economic growth, just numbers, but also, to ensure the living standards of our citizens would be, expanded and ensured. So in order to achieve this, as I said earlier, and also my colleague Temesgen Tilahun has emphasized earlier on it, is about the private sector's, role and participation in this, endeavor. The government has done, an incredible, success over the past 2 years in terms of, opening the space and ensuring, the right policy and strategic, reform processes. So we need to really make sure that this space is, the economic marketplace is open for the domestic and private, foreign, private initiatives and investment, for us to be able to really unlock the potential that this country has in terms of, economic growth in all sectors of the economy, so that we would achieve the, high economic growth, so that we would achieve a broad-based, multi-dimensional, development target that we set, and really make Ethiopia, a very big economy, not only in East Africa, but also, in Africa in general, because this is a very massive marketplace, which has, a very large population, more than, 100 million. So the economy that we create has to, live up to that aspirations and visions. And the government is, really committed to pursue, the desired economic reforms, which the 2 years, experience, tells that the government is really committed to achieve that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think one of the most, the biggest highlight of the current policies or reforms is when it comes to the financial sector. The one to allow local private Ethiopian banks to borrow money from the international market gives them more opportunity to have a financial inflow, forex inflow into the country. But we also would love to discuss from now on a bit in a broader way, so not one-to-one, but involving also our listeners and participants who are there now. in the chat. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to raise a question or if you have more questions, please raise your questions in the chat and address your question to all panelists so we can read it. And we would love to collect questions and use in the next half hour or 40 minutes to answer also your questions. The bottleneck for a couple of years, it was in the financial sector. And maybe we can open up the discussion now and go the new regulations or directives for which came from the National Bank of Ethiopia, for instance, to give the banks more freedom, that they have more money available. The buying bonds of 25 or 27% has been removed, and to give the Ethiopian banks strength to operate properly, and this has been also done in the last few months. And one very important question for investors or for foreign companies, even though when it comes to trade or investment, is the forex availability and the financial sector. So I think to this we could give one or two answers to our listeners. It's free. Whoever wants to answer first this question or wants to discuss this question first can go to that. Ato Temesgen or Ato Dr. Nemera.
I give the chance for Temesgen.
All right. I think the question is about the hard currency challenge specific as such, and it's about the broader financial sector reform. Of course, among the three pillars of the reform agenda, the macroeconomic reform pillar mainly revolves around addressing certain bottlenecks in the financial sector. Among these, addressing the hard currency challenge and the shortage of hard currency for the private sector is top in the list. So in the past 1 or so years, the National Bank of Ethiopia and actually the National Macroeconomic Committee came up with a number of directives to support the private sector access more hard currency and somehow overcome finance-related challenges. Just like any developing country, of course, the hard currency challenge is there with us because of the growth itself. But this is a problem that's not going to stay with us forever. Keep alone the direct and focused intervention by the government, it could naturally wither away through a balanced growth trajectory, natural economic performance for a growing economy like Ethiopia. For instance, among the initiatives the government has been taking to support the private sector, basically foreign direct investors, access hard currency, one can mention is the supplier's credit modality, exceptionally allowed for manufacturing sector companies. The Franco valuta privilege, which is actually stipulated by the law, are temporary solutions which the government put in place for at least temporarily address the challenges, the recurrent challenges of hard currency shortage that companies are facing. My belief, of course, the central change that could once and for all address this challenge is the policy direction or the policy shift of putting the private sector into core economic activities than the previous public investment, which actually depleted the national finance that could be reserved for the private sector to use. There is a huge improvement in terms of national hard currency reserve as to the report of the National Bank of Ethiopia, and this could be addressed by targeted intervention on the export sector and actually attracting more anchoring investors. And overall, the privatization agenda that's happening is also one of the solutions that could temporarily and for the midterm and long term tackle the very problem of hard currency. But the financial sector reform is a central theme of the reform agenda, which is actually going much faster than the rest of the reform agendas. In my personal belief, and the belief that we have as an investment commission, is that the hard currency challenge might not stay with us for the coming 3 to 4 years. It could be overcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Temesgen. Dr. Nemera, you want to add something to that?
Just a quick one. Yes, you've exactly pointed out earlier about the of course any economic reforms needs to have a priority. In that sense, during the homegrown economic reform, one of the major area that the reform process has targeted is in a broader sense the macroeconomy. From that, the financial sector is one of the biggest priority, because as I said earlier, for the low growth and development of the private sector, participation in the economic activity, one of the bottlenecks were the relate to, in the broader sense, to the financial sector, constraints. Of course, that constraint comes, in different forms. The first one is, as you mentioned earlier, about the forex. Actually, the Ethiopia's forex issue could be really like, broadened, classified into two challenges. The first one is the pricing issue. That the government has really prioritized now. It's often said that Ethiopia's domestic currency is overvalued, and now the government, has prioritized and accordingly, trying to redress the challenge. Of course, as I also mentioned earlier, these reform processes needs to really, move naturally, so that it doesn't really create any distortions in the broader economy. So on that wing, we are, targeting how to, redress gradually, trying to really, float the Ethiopian currencies over the long term by following a natural growth, because that also should give a confidence for the foreign investors to put their assets in Ethiopian, investment denominated in domestic currencies when, the price is accordingly corrected. The other is the availability issue, the second major problem of the forex. Of course, Ethiopia is a very low, narrow base, export and foreign direct investment sector. These are the two major sources for foreign exchanges. So we are, wishing that the reforms that we're undertaking domestically, gradually in the long term would ensure that Ethiopia would have large inflows of forex currencies, so that when we have larger inflows into the economy, our reserve would become much more, stable, so that we can enhance really the import challenges that we face with the allocation of forex for our, domestic and foreign investors in the manufacturing and also in the broader economic sectors. The other challenge is also actually the giving the freedom for the private, commercial banks. In the past, we followed a very repressive financial policies. For example, you mentioned about the 27 rule policy that really, forces the private commercial banks to provide credit for the public investment with a very, cheap credit below a market prices. That could really, pushes the cost of capital very high, which makes it, unconducive for private sectors to really take a risk to have the credit from the commercial bankers. The fact that the government has scrapped that rule now, the domestic commercial bankers have now more credits available, loanable investment funds that goes into the private initiatives and investment. If you see the numbers over the last 2 years, the growth of the private sector allocation of credits is much bigger than the average credit availability that we've experienced over the last 2 decades in Ethiopia. So the direction is really indicated that credit availability is also made ensured for the private sector participation. The other is also, you mentioned, gradually, but of course in the future, opening up the space, would require for our domestic bankers to also globally raise, equities, credits, so that, the sources of financing our growth would be based on, much broader, sources of financing. So as I said earlier, the reforms need to really go, naturally. They say that nature doesn't jump, but for sure, in the long term, ambitions that we are setting as a country, that is the space that we wanted to see in the long run, where all these bottlenecks are resolved, and the private sector duly participate in the economic activity.
Yeah, thank you very much. I see many questions are coming in, and please let me choose the first one that came. The Ethiopian Airlines one might be very interesting and maybe easy to answer. Yeah, how do you see the potential for privatization in the aviation industry with Ethiopian Airlines, for instance? Thank you very much, asks Felix Guntermann. So aviation investment, I can read the mother questions, you can read that too at the same time. From which sectors do you want to have closer engagement in your country? As Wilfried Maus. Shatu Welde Michael asked, what needs to be done to attract more German companies? Dear Shatu, this is what we want to answer and to work on, to have more Germans involved in the Ethiopian economy. What needs to be done to attract more German companies? That way we have seen, maybe we can answer these 2 or 3 questions, and I'm pretty sure we will have more questions coming in. We can feel free to answer these questions, whoever. Okay, let me go to Temesgen first. Temesgen, which question do you want to answer from that what I have just mentioned? Maybe the area of which area do you seek investment, especially from Germany and Baden-Württemberg? I assume you have focus areas for investment. Ethiopia itself, in general, has focus areas in this 10-year development plan, but maybe we can have a specific answer to that.
All right, thank you. Maybe to start with the aviation industry related question as part of the reform, the initial privatization agenda, the Ethiopian Airlines is among the institutions that were in the pipeline to be partially privatized, but for the time being, the government is reconsidering its decision. For the time, it's a temporary suspension as such. Probably in the future, Ethiopian Airlines could be one of the enterprises ready to be privatized or partially privatized for German companies as an opportunity. I mean, it could be an opportunity for German companies to consider. In addition to that, as part of the new regulation, domestic air transport service is now open, but it's through JV, joint investment with a local investor. So a German company might consider investing in the aviation sector with a domestic investor to provide domestic air transport service. That could be one in relation to that. In terms of priority sectors, of course, this once again could be traced to the 5 major priority sectors put in place in the reform, the homegrown reform agenda. One is agriculture. In the agriculture sector, of course, the agro-processing industries are top in the list. Ethiopia has plenty of opportunity in the agricultural sector, basically in the agro-processing sector, horticulture, fruits and vegetables, and like us, we are still prioritizing this. And as an opportunity, we have we make ready for agro-processing industrial parks, which are convenient places to agro-process in certain value chains across the country. And still, actually, the manufacturing sector, light manufacturing sector, including in the pharmaceutical, textile, and apparel, laser manufacturing, chemicals, the energy sector, for example, power generation are among the top in the list. In the tourism sector, of course, tourism investment, I mean, real estate development, resort development, and the likes are still opportunities for German companies. The automotive sector, which, of course, still is a specific priority for us in terms of attracting companies from Germany. There is a discussion already going on with a number of German companies. Basically, we know Wuerttemberg is basically endowed with a number of big name automotive companies. As such, this is a priority sector still in Ethiopia, and we hope to bring a company or a number of companies from Germany into this sector. The mining sector is another opportunity. Ethiopia has a number of have a number of mines, I mean, that could be exploited to support economic growth. We have gold, opal, and the like among the minerals that could be, including petroleum exploration. These are some of the opportunities. ICT, of course, is still a priority sector. The IT-enabled services, BPOs, and somehow IT equipment manufacturing still is an opportunity for German companies to consider in Ethiopia. What needs to be done to attract more German companies? Of course, engagements of this kind is very important. The first thing is information. A very specific, detailed information about the opportunities on the ground in Ethiopia through a number of channels. I mean, by panel discussion and forums, webinars like this, or bilateral meetings, in a kind of information exchange through the Ethiopian embassy in Germany. We can facilitate information flow, and somehow currently the Ethiopian Investment Commission fully implemented an online service, and our website is full of information about the opportunities, and you can explore information there, and you can ask questions, not only asking questions, but also you can apply for an investment license online. So this kind of bridge between Ethiopian government institutions like EIC, the Planning Commission, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and specific German companies and partners like East African partners are important platforms for attracting more German companies into Ethiopia.
Thank you very much, Dr. Temesgen. As you mentioned, we had last year the delegation from Baden-Württemberg to Ethiopia, and as has been mentioned by Mr. Schmid at the beginning, also we had a delegation from Investment Commission to and the Ministry of Transport and Ministry of Industry, like many ministers, went to Stuttgart also to learn more about automotive from Baden-Württemberg. And we are now, as Baden-Württemberg East Africa office, we are now also in negotiation with the Investment Commission how to see how Baden-Württemberg, with all this rich experience in automotive, could be a vital partner for Ethiopia's development in the automotive sector. So therefore, thank you very much for mentioning this. Dr. Nemera, you want to add to this many questions, one or two, or shall we proceed with answering further questions?
Yes, I would like to see further questions because my colleague Temesgen has addressed perfectly all the questions.
Yes, very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, please ask more questions. I think the questions about the tourism sector has been answered, and priority investments for German companies Ethiopia has been answered as well by Mr. Gebeyehu. And of course, what has need to be done to promote investment, perfectly answered. Maybe because we don't see more questions and the time is running, maybe you should use this opportunity now to introduce what is the East Africa office of Baden-Württemberg. What is it about? So maybe my colleague Hannes can share a short slide to tell you all what is this office and what are we doing here in Addis Ababa. And a short introduction, because I haven't done that so far, about me and myself. I am German Ethiopian, lived for almost 30 years in Germany and moved back about 2 years ago, along with the reforms what we are facing. But for the last 10 years, I was involved in promoting Ethiopia in Germany, and organized many events, many delegations, and that's how we came also with Baden-Württemberg in contact 3.5 years ago. So we have organized a huge Ethiopian business forum in Stuttgart, organized huge delegation from Baden-Württemberg to Ethiopia, 2 delegations in 2 years with high rank or high level delegations. Okay, there's the slide now. That's how it started to be a partner with Baden-Württemberg of this many years experience. Then the Ministry of Economic Affairs of Baden-Württemberg came to the idea to open an office in East Africa and in South Africa. So this was a very good chance to promote the relationship between Ethiopia and Germany. Can we go to the first slide? Or this is the first slide, okay. It's okay. This is in 3 languages. This is also how it's described at our office door. And we can go now to the next slide. Thank you, Hannes. So what are our office or the service of our office? So if you are interested to engage in a country, first you need information. That's what we do. We organize delegation programs, specific or sector-specific publications, and market informations, and as well. Companies from Baden-Württemberg, that's around what we are discussing here, are entitled to contact me and my office, German-speaking consultants, to have this information for free. Detailed information about not only Ethiopia, but East Africa, but of course, because we are here in Addis Ababa, about Ethiopia is the most we can provide. But also very fast developing countries like Sudan. You might heard that the peace agreement or the agreement with the USA that Sudan might not be on a terror funding or supporting countries list, and therefore no more embargo on Sudan. That might help the regional integration here in Ethiopia and East Africa to trade with each other, but as well opens huge chances for companies from Baden-Württemberg. The next step is the strategy. How do I enter a market? How do I find a partner or joint venture partner or trading partner? And how can I accurately design my product and my pricing? This is something what we develop here at our office and give the service to companies from Baden-Württemberg and beyond. The last and the most important part is the implementation, the execution part. For that, you need money. We are lucky to announce that we are a partner of DEG Bank, so we can finance German investments here in Ethiopia or in East Africa in general. And this doesn't, going back to the full, this means it starts on a very low numbers and to finance the investments of German companies in East Africa. The next slide, which is very interesting, and many companies doesn't know about this, the federal government in Germany supports the activity of German companies in developing countries. Ethiopia is a partner of Germany, as you might heard from the opening speech by His Excellency Mr. Auer, the new ambassador here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So this partnership is very strong, and there are many offers for companies from Germany how they could finance or how they could secure their investment. And the one I would love to share with you is investitionsgarantien.de. This is a platform offered by Ministry of Economic Affairs, federal level, to secure your investment over 15 years. So this is something you should read and might maybe help you to make a decision to go in developing countries or partner countries. So our office is based here in Addis Ababa, in the city. Okay, sorry, I just received paper. Yeah, not far from the airport. The next slide, please. Not far from the airport in Wallo Safar is our office. You are most welcome to come and to see and visit us and raise your question about Ethiopia. Do we have seen new incoming questions? No, they are not incoming questions. That's a perfect time. Before we close, I just have Her Excellency Tsion joined us again, or she was permanently here, and she will do the last closing remarks. But before we are so far, I would love to ask Temesgen and Dr. Nemera to finalize a sentence, basically a habit in Germany when we organize forums. Today, we heard about the plan where Ethiopia might be by 2030. This is a plan, this is a strategy, and the private sector has now the chance, because of the rule of law is existing, the necessary proclamations, laws, and the directives are given. So now the private sector is taking more and more seats of the driver's seat. This is what have been said several times. So the point is now, we are now in 10 years. So many questions were, where do we see German companies from Baden-Württemberg in Ethiopia? So we'd love to ask you to finish the sentence. I see German companies in 10 years engaged in Ethiopia by, and this might be your wish, this might be your prediction, this might be your goal, but please finish this sentence. And the letter will close the session with Her Excellency Tsion. Thank you.
Okay, let me go take the chance. And yeah, once again, I would like to really thank the East African partners for organizing this event. And on behalf of Planning and Development Commission, I would like to really say thank you to Stefanos and his colleagues. And this is a very useful platforms for Ethiopia as a country to really engage with all the diverse stakeholders, in this particular with our long-standing partner in development, which is Germany. So in 10 years' time, I would like to see the Germany as a country, and also the private sector investors from Germany to really double in number, and also take part, as Temesgen earlier mentioned, in all the priority sectors Ethiopia has identified, in the agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, and also in the technological sectors, automation, and also pharmaceutical, and go beyond that, also the ICT sector. So I would like to see the German investors in Ethiopia, one of the contributors to Ethiopia's to see. So thank you very much, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Nemera. Temesgen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank East African partners for organizing such a wonderful event. I hope it is only the opening one, and you'll do a kind of these forums frequently, and hope it could be a permanent platform between the Ethiopian Investment Commission and German companies and East African partners itself as a bridge. And I hope to see more questions coming to us, specific questions. I mean, we can drop you our email in the message box, and we are ready to answer any question you might have on the investment opportunities, legal frameworks, and incentives that you might have in participating in investing in Ethiopia. And once again, I would like to see more investors coming from specifically Baden-Württemberg, due to the exceptional opportunities that we have through the partner in Ethiopia. And I'm really happy to see turnout of a number of audience in this particular webinar. Hope to see you soon in Ethiopia, and wish more investment to come to Ethiopia in the coming months, a year, and so on. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Temesgen. Yeah, I've been in Germany last week, and on my way back, I was so shocked to see the Frankfurt airport so empty. So once we can travel and once business is resuming after COVID, I'm pretty sure we will have a lot of exchange and strengthen. But until then, we can keep the online sessions. As I give the last words to Her Excellency Tsion, before that, I would love to thank the Ministry of Economic Affairs of Baden-Württemberg, Baden-Württemberg International, and all our partners for organizing such a huge 1 month long event. And as has been mentioned in the morning, there are many events happening over this week in East Africa. The one tomorrow, I have the pleasure to also to moderate, and therefore please check all the other events, and maybe you can register and also participate to other forums. By any questions, our office, East Africa office of Baden-Württemberg, is always open for you. And I would love to thank my team, the technical team. It was a bit struggling because it's live. We are not TV stars, but it went properly. Thank you very much for my team from East Africa Partners for being here and everywhere and organizing this beautiful technical backup. Thank you for that. Your Excellency Tsion. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, we can't hear you properly. Maybe the sound once. Can we check the sound, please?
A webinar, I would say all the people who are behind the scenes and also the presenters, Dr. Nemera and also Temesgen, as well as Stefanos for making this a success. I would like to thank everybody for your efforts. It's not easy to do it online from different places. I've been in and out on my phone, on different devices to be able to actually follow the whole program. But I truly enjoyed the conversation that we had, the questions that came. I would love to maximize on what Temesgen said. Information is really key, and this is one of the things that we're doing right now. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is planning to have an online forum on the investment, on the new investment law, so that people can exactly understand what it is about, what the effects are, and also most of our foreign investors as well as foreign governments know that we have different investment laws for mining as well as other investment opportunities. So we'll have an online forum explaining what the laws are when it comes to mining investment and other investments, and the recently changed law, improved law, and what it means and the impact. So we'll continue communicating. We expect our German friends to be able to tell us exactly where we need to improve, because that's the friendship that we have and the partnership that we expect. Ethiopia is a learning country in investment. So we expect a lot to learn from different nations, and one of the nations would be Germany. We welcome you to come here. The tourism is going, well, we're partially open now. We will definitely be open, hopefully. Keep safe, and it's an opportunity for me to be able to even open and also close this event. I would love to see more of German investors in Ethiopia, and we will closely work with the state of Baden-Württemberg as well as the German embassy here. Please feel free to communicate with our two missions in Germany, one in Frankfurt, the Consular General, as well as the embassy in Berlin. We are always at your service. Please come to visit Ethiopia, to invest in Ethiopia, to make trade with Ethiopia. You've been a friend for long, and we expect our friendship to last for a very many years. Thank you so much for having us today, and I wish you all the best and keep safe.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Tsion. Thank you to all attendees. This session has been recorded. We'll edit it, and this will be available on the platform of Baden-Württemberg. And as we might have your email contacts, we will share it with you. Thank you, Excellency Tsion. Thank you, Your Excellency Dr. Nemera. Thank you, Ato Temesgen. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.